Meters away. Behind her was the panting man-woman. Sorry about that, Tia. I thought I was a goner. So your blood is red too, Gagarin. What are you acting all surprised for? It's not like this is the first time you've seen me get hurt. I thought you'd start to bleed blue by now. Like a power-up. That's not a power-up, that's becoming another race entirely. A class change, then. As she heard the two of them bantering, Entoma grew angry. She was the strong one here. Only she was allowed to act so casual. They needed to know where they stood. Are you quite done yet? Have you said your farewells to each other? Entoma grew cautious for the first time. The man-woman, Gagarin, was nothing to fear. The problem was the newcomer Tia. If her clothes were not just for looks, then she ought to be a ninja. That was a job class which required a minimum character level of 60 to take. If that were the case, then the teleportation technique, which had allowed Gagarin to escape Entoma's attack, was ninjutsu. If she were a real ninja, then even Entoma would not be able to win easily. She had thought to conserve her strength and eliminate her opponent, but things being as they were, she could no longer afford to hold back. Shikigamo talismans. Before her opponents could act, Entoma had already thrown out 4 talismans from her right hand. The talismans landed on the ground, and instantly transformed into huge spiders. These spiders were comparable to the monsters conjured by Summon Monster Third, and they were hardly powerful creatures, but they ought to be enough to gauge her opponent's strength. They would also buy her time to prepare herself. Entoma was doing this because Entomancer's insect weapons were very powerful, but they had a few weaknesses. One of them was the fact that summoning the insects in question required some time. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As Tia activated her ninjutsu, her shadow writhed and birthed another Tia. Entoma paid no attention to it. The clones generated by the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu were only a quarter as strong as their creator. Their evasive ability varied in proportion to how much of their creator's mana had been allocated to them, but that was all. Perhaps they might be considered formidable opponents for the Shikigamo, but they were hardly a challenge for Entoma. Rather, the more important thing was how skilled the original was. Entoma called out her trump cards, her bullet bugs and another kind of insect. At the same time, she pasted talismans on herself to further strengthen her abilities. A swarm of bullet bugs gathered out of nowhere and covered her left arm. The 3-centimeter-long insects gleamed with a steely radiance, and the fronts of their V-shaped bodies were sharp, bearing a strong resemblance to rifle bullets. No, that resemblance was only to be expected, because these insects were used exactly like rifle bullets. The shadow clone was running ragged just trying to evade the attacks of one Shikigamo, while the original was dealing with 2 of them. The fact that she had only killed one after so long suggested that her foes were most definitely not high-leveled. That being the case, victory ought to be easy even if one factored in Gagarin's fighting power. As if, I'm not going to think that way. She was not going to show them any mercy. She would quickly end the battle with overwhelming force. The weight on her left arm pleased Entoma, and she extended the finger of her left hand at Tia. The bugs had encrusted Entoma's arm until they had practically doubled its diameter. As one, they crawled to the front of her arm, and then took wing from her extended finger, one after the other. The incessant buzzing of wings called to mind the image of a Gatling gun. The path of the bullet bugs meant that they pierced through her own Shikigamo, but in total, 150 of them flew downstream at Tia. These bugs could punch holes in steel, and even a large tree would be riddled full of holes and saw it in half if it was hit by 150 of them. However, in the face of the fatal projectiles, Tia used another ninjutsu technique. Futakonga Tate no Jutsu. A scintillating rainbow-colored shield sprang into existence in front of Tia. The bugs slammed into the gigantic wall of light that cut through the darkness, which was shaped like a 6-pointed star. Within a few seconds, the shield shattered with the crisp sound of breaking glass. However, the fusillade of insects had stopped as the shield broke, revealing an unhurt Tia behind it. Entoma had no tongue, but she clicked it anyway. However, the fact that she could force her foe to use one ace in the hole after another was like lighting the path to her victory. So far her foe could withstand Entoma's attacks, but once Entoma's offense surpassed her opponent's defense, the flood which washed over their protections would surely consume them too. Entoma deflected the kunai flying from the front with the sword bug. Then she blocked Gagarin's plunging mid-air strike with her shield bug. She must have jumped down from quite a high place, because the shield bug had to take a lot of pressure, and it squeaked like it was wailing in pain. If the dazzling lights of the Fudakonga Tate had affected Entoma's vision, she would not have been able to block Gagarin's leaping attack from the darkness. However, Entoma's vision was not affected by such petty trickery. In addition, her field of vision was much larger than that of a human, even when she wore that. Perhaps she sensed that following up on the attack would be dangerous, but Gagarin skated away, her legs remained still, but the distance between them opened up. The fact that she was moving so nimbly despite her massive frame proved that her wounds were completely healed. She took her place beside Tia, and crushed the bullet bug's corpses underfoot, making a clear pachi-pachi noise. This is terrible, I don't feel like we can win at all. How did she do that? Her timing was too good, don't you think? She barely even saw me, but she blocked me anyway. Maybe she has a wide field of vision? It should be something else. I think it's more likely that it's an entomancer ability, or some kind of magical sense. That said, everything's in her favor, so why didn't she attack while we were talking? A beast will size up its prey's strength, and then strike at its vitals. I see. In other words, she's studying all our moves. That's completely unlike our shorty, these careful types are really hard to deal with. It wouldn't be good to look down on you because you're humans, no? Although there was another reason, there we are, it's here. Now then, I won't need this anymore. The insect clinging to Entoma's right arm fell to the ground and vanished into the night, with a scrabbling noise. And in its place, come here. Another insect crawled onto the now vacant arm. It resembled a centipede. No, it practically was a centipede, if one disregarded the fact that it was 10 meters long, and the sharp fangs at what passed for its face in front. This was the most powerful insect her entomancer abilities could summon, the thousand-lash bug. Entoma began channeling her strength into her legs. She had learned the attack speed, destructive power, defensive strength, evasive ability, and movement abilities of the two humans before her. The only unknown variable was Tia's adaptability, but there was no need to worry about that. Oops. Entoma touched her chin. Her fingers made contact with a clear, sticky fluid. I just ate my fill, but after a bit of exercise I'm hungry again. She had touched her saliva. It was the expression of her desire for humans as food. Although her favorite food was humans, until now she had only been able to sate her cravings using green biscuits as a substitute. Of course, she did not resent the Supreme Beings because of that. In fact, Entoma felt that the Supreme Beings were quite generous for allowing her to eat the arms which had been severed during the experiments on the humans captured from a certain village. Even so, she had still been repressing herself, and now that there were two excellent specimens of humanity, the highest grade of cuisine, before her, she could not bear to dispose of them without taking a single bite. The two of them shuddered, exposed as they were before Entoma's hungry gaze. They were not afraid of the killing intent she emitted, but this was a trembling born of the revulsion any living being had when a carnivore set its sights on them. Kiai. This was the first time Entoma had gone on the offensive in the battle, and her attack was accompanied by a shrill cry that sounded like two pieces of foam rubbing against each other. Predators pounced their prey in a straight line, and at very high speeds. By the time she had deflected the 6 consecutive kunai coming at her, she had covered the distance between both parties. Seeing Gagarin the frontliner raise her weapon, Entoma decided on the first person she would incapacitate, and she swung the whip in her right hand. The longer the whip, the slower its tip would move. The same applied even to Entoma, who possessed superhuman muscle power. However, that was only true if the whip in question was a normal one. Entoma was now using the most powerful insect that she, as an entomancer, could summon, the whip, which should have followed the motion of Entoma's arm in a lazy arc, moved in a completely impossible fashion. It launched out like an extension of Entoma's arm at Gagarin, its razor-sharp horns and teeth leading the way at lightning speed. This movement was only possible from a creature that was a fusion of weapon and life form. Even a veteran of 1,000 bizarre encounters like Gagarin had probably never seen or experienced this sort of thing before. It was only natural that she would be surprised by witnessing something like that for the first time. The fact that she could avoid such a strange attack was why she was called an adamantite-ranked adventurer, the highest ranked of all adventurers. Gagarin evaded the attack by the narrowest of margins, and as the insect whip flew past her face, "Watch out!" Following Tia's cry, Gagarin's body was blown away. This was Tia's ninjutsu, Bakuenjin. The suicidal explosion enveloped the two of them. The 1,000-lash bug passed through the place where Gagarin's head had been, having turned a full 180 degrees to attack from behind. If not for that suicidal explosion, the 1,000-lash bug would have pierced her skull. It had been well dodged. However, Entoma's attack did not stop there. The 1,000-lash bug suddenly turned as though it was on strings, heading at Gagarin's blackened body. At the same time, Entoma cast a talisman at Tia. It was a Thunderbird talisman. The talisman transformed into several birds of bluish-white electricity in mid-air, and winged towards Tia. If there were two opponents, then all she had to do was let her bug deal with one of them. One could say that was an advantage that Entomancers possessed. The lightning strike exploded, and actinic blue-white light burst out to cover the surroundings, illuminating Tia, who was trying to withstand the pain, and Gagarin, who was trying to fend off the 1,000-lash bug. Motherfucker. I hate these squirmy things. Gagarin weighed down the head of the 1,000-lash bug with her spiked warhammer, and gripped it under her left armpit, trying to keep it from moving. However, the insect used its 10-meter-long body to coil loop after loop of itself around her body. Tia stepped forward and threw a dagger, which struck Entoma's shield bug with a metallic sound. Thunderbird Flurry Talisman. Entoma cast out many talismans with her left hand. They transformed into birds that were slightly smaller than before and converged on Tia. However, Tia vanished, and bereft of a target, the Thunderbirds flew on. Tia emerged from the darkness behind Entoma, where she should have been outside of her field of vision. This was a short-range teleport through the medium of shadows. However, Entoma had long since spotted her. Much like certain insects had antennae, Entoma could sense movements in the air currents through a similar organ, which was another facet of Entoma's sensory abilities. The few remaining bullet bugs shot out at Tia as she stepped out of the shadows. Guorg. The stink of fresh blood accompanied a cry of pain, but Entoma sensed that her opponent was still able to fight, and so she followed up on her attack. Explosive Talisman. An explosion more intense than the one Tia had previously made shattered the nighttime silence. Tia was blown away, rolling along the ground, and more talismans continued flying after her. They were keen slice talismans and buffeting gale talismans. Tia could not find a chance to get to her feet, and she left a trail of bloodstains in her wake as she rolled further and further away, all the while being slashed and blasted. Tia. You insect bitch. The insect whip had already wrapped up Gagarin, who was cursing from inside the spherical mass. They had probably planned to have Gagarin weigh down the 1,000-lash bug, while Tia attacked Entoma herself. Entoma chuckled under her mask. All she could say was that they were utterly foolish. Entoma was one of the great underground tomb of Nazarek's Pleiades battle maids. Humans of their level could not possibly hope to defeat her. The wisest course of action would have been to ignore the fact that Entoma had eaten someone and run with all their might. They had chosen poorly, and these were the consequences of that choice. The sequence of events is kind of wrong, but oh well, I guess I can't do anything about that. In any case, I'll probably be able to eat my fill since there are so many mussels, and it looks tasty too. Entoma summoned more insects. These ones did not possess any fearsome fighting ability. They resembled syringes, which injected a paralytic venom. Entoma grabbed the bugs and stepped lightly towards Tia. This was a nice souvenir. Many creatures in the great underground tomb of Nazarick ate human beings. They would surely be very happy to receive a present like this. What's that? Entoma's exceptional senses warned her of a long, cold object plunging down on her from above, and she leapt away. At that moment, a long lance stabbed into the ground where Entoma had just been standing. It looked like a cavalry lance made of crystal. However, that was no ordinary lance. That was because the cavalry lance which had pierced the stone floor was made of fragile crystal, yet it did not have a single crack on it. Is that a spell? As a spiritual magic caster, Entoma could sense certain common qualities, which all magic-using careers shared from the cavalry lance. Indeed. This is a 4th-tier arcane spell, Crystal Lance. The person who answered her descended slowly upon the butt of the cavalry lance. She was a diminutive, masked girl in a robe with a childish voice. More helpers? Even Entoma was starting to get annoyed. She had thought she was about to enjoy a tasty meal, but then she had been surprised by an unexpected development. Her frustration was only to be expected. That's enough from you for now. From Hoy? I can still let you off now, so could you please leave? Children's meat is tender and I like it very much, but the portions are just too small. I'll play with you after I've eaten the 2 of them. I see, so you're a man-eater. And you're dressed up like a maid, are you kidding me? Who the hell would want a monster who reeks of blood attending them? What did you say, you little bitch? Entoma had accidentally spoken in her true voice, and she hurriedly clamped her hand down on her throat. She could not tolerate what this new enemy had said and her agitation had overcome her. She wanted to tear apart the woman in front of her, not because it was the principle of the strong preying upon the weak, but because that woman had upset her. What did this woman just say to me? Me, a Pleiades battle made of the great underground tomb of Nazarick, one who serves the supreme beings? The fires of hell itself blazed brightly within Entoma's body. I'll kill you. She could no longer control her voice. However, she desperately struggled to keep her back from swelling up. Evil Eye? Tia called out to the masked woman, and Entoma now knew the name of the person she was going to slaughter with all her strength. I was wondering what you were trying to do, honestly. Lesson 1. Always consider the relative strength and weakness of yourself and your opponent. She's stronger than you, and weaker than me. Evil Eye swept her arm and set her cape aflutter, and then she shouted, How dare you bully my comrades, you monster! Now I'll teach you what it feels like to be bullied in turn. You can thank me for it later. Furious anger exploded from beneath that mask, but Entoma did not care. Entoma was radiating murderous intent of her own from every pore of her body, and she broke into a sprint. In Entoma's hate-filled mind, the other 2 were nothing more than bothersome pebbles. Did she say nobody would want me attending them? Those words echoed through her mind again and again. Entoma swung the 1,000-lash bug. There was only about a meter or so left for her to grip. The rest had already formed into a huge sphere. Naturally, Gagrin was at the heart of it. I'll squash you flat with your friend. Damn woman. She smashed the 1,000-lash bug down on her opponent, like she was wielding a flail. Humph, what a boring attack. However, Evil Eye was unmoved. Reverse gravity, . Entoma resisted the spell, but the 1,000-lash bug turned weightless and floated up leisurely. As long as the wearer successfully resisted a spell, their equipment would also resist it. However, insect weapons did not use their wielder's resistance, but had to resist spells and effects on their own. Therefore, even if a spell did not affect Entoma herself, it could affect her insect weapons, as shown by the current situation. This was a demerit of insect weapons, which could prosecute independent attacks. However powerful Entoma was, she could only give up her original plan in the face of this magic. The 1,000-lash bug sensed what Entoma was thinking and released Gagrin. It unrolled like a tape measure and instantly became a 10-meter-long insect whip. As Gagrin collapsed to the ground, Evil Eye barked orders at her. Gagrin. You're in the way. Go heal up Tia. If your gloves are used up, feed her potions. The injured humans were going to heal themselves. That alone was not a problem, because neither of them was a worthy opponent for Entoma. However, the magic caster in front of her was a different matter entirely, considering her abilities. Evil Eye was on Entoma's level. If she had help, the tide might quickly turn against her. Thus, while Entoma was unwilling to deploy it, she decided to reveal her true ace in the hole. She had already used it once to exterminate everyone within the mansion in one fell swoop, but she could still use it 2 more times. It was the ability to exhale a cloud of carnivorous flies, fly breath. The flies expelled by the breath were like cattle flies. They did not eat flesh in and of themselves, but they laid flesh-burrowing grubs. The grubs would burrow into their victims' bodies and cause damage over time to them. Worse, once the larvae sprouted wings, they would become a choking swarm that would attack anyone who entered their area of effect save certain individuals. Entoma bared her throat, exposing her true face from where a human's chin would be. To an outsider, it would look like her jaw had split open. With an Overlord, she vomited a mass of swarming flies. Is that power connected to the demon gods? In that case, white vapor spread from Evil Eye, as though to meet the attack. Ice-type attacks were a good response, but they could not completely neutralize the swarm. The ideal method would be spells that created blasts or explosions to disperse the fly swarms. She had made a mistake. Entoma imagined how Evil Eye would look when the maggots ripped her to shreds, but the spell she had used as a counterattack exceeded her predictions. As they touched the vapors, the flies fell to the ground one by one. Said vapors then enveloped Entoma's body. At that moment, Entoma was racked by incredible agony. Diamond suit, Ababa. The Entomancer's face emitted a cloud of steam, and deformed, as though someone had poured acid on it. Evil Eye's objective had been to negate her opponent's breath attack, but she had not expected it to reveal her enemy's true face. Oi, did it work? Gagarin had her spiked warhammer raised, and she was looking for a chance to approach her opponent. As expected of an excellent warrior, she had probably sensed that this was the deciding moment of the battle. In truth, given their opponent's fighting power, they had to follow up on this attack and finish the fight quickly. Gagarin could not approach the enemy because the 10-meter-long insect was thrashing about wildly, preventing her from getting close. However, it felt like futile resistance from a defeated enemy. What on earth was that spell? Evil Eye answered Tia's question. It's an insect-killing spell, Verminbane. There was an insectal demon god among the demon gods 200 years ago. So I invented this spell to wipe out the insects it summoned. Well, it's something like a unique creation. Oi. Will this spell harm us? It won't. It's especially effective against vermin, but it's non-toxic towards other living creatures. Her face melted. Tia, that's because her true identity is, No, that's not a face. As though waiting for Evil Eye to exclaim just that, the maid's pretty face slid stickily down, and thudded to the ground. It looked like the skin had been peeled off her face, but that was not the case. The back of the face which had fallen onto the ground was covered in insectal legs. To think it was an insect shaped like a mask, Orguo. The maid's throat was exposed. There was a slit in that abnormally hard-looking throat, and a big chunk of something slime-covered fell out of it. It resembled a wad of vomitus, but the deciding difference was the fact that it was still writhing on the ground. What the? Evil Eye could not help but hold her breath in the face of this chain of bizarre events. This was the first time she had experienced something like this in her long life. A lit bug. That was the name Tia used to address the slime-covered, leech-like creature that had fallen to the stony ground. This